Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience and thank you for coming out and thank you for the team who have organised and facilitated today. It's a shame that there's not more in the room, but I think when you have a party, the good people come. That's what I always say, the good people come, so you are the good people. Yes, fantastic. That's always very flat your audience when you start out. Just a bit of background and then I want to have a bit of a conversation because I think I came to prominence in a very interesting way, one I don't really advocate. I do an awful lot of outreach work now. I founded an organisation called the Bright Ideas Trust. We raised a couple of £1 million and invested in some start-up businesses because I wanted to move away from the appearance that the only way to be successful was to sell your soul to a television devil, that I did in terms of the reality genre that I entered into, or jump or run really quickly. Now I have no problem with people who can run really fast. In my house, Usain Bolt is a king. I have no problem with people who can jump really high, because those people who play basketball and do fantastic and earn lots of money do that, fantastic, and I want that to be celebrated. However, I feel for the majority of people, their reality is going to be working and earning money to keep a roof over their head. And the reason why that's so important to me, because that's just like your dad was that inspirational figure for you, it was my mum who was the inspirational figure in my house. My mum was an entrepreneur, but she never knew what the term meant. Not because she wasn't intelligent or clever, but my mum grew up in a small parish in Jamaica, St Catherine, and in order to get to school, she had to get a taxi service to get it, because it was a little way and a distance. She didn't have an Oyster card. There was free transportation, and my daughter and her friend in York, well, my daughter didn't bring her today, but we'll leave her in a second. She didn't have that opportunity, but the taxi driver didn't just want the fare to take her to the local school, so instead of sacrificing herself, she decided to stay on the local farm and sell chicken foot stew in the local market. A delicacy I didn't see on the menu today. I was quite upset about that. I was going to leave. I was like, what kind of Black History Month is this? But it's an acquired taste. It's an acquired taste. Believe me, it's an acquired taste. Anyway, but my mum had this big passion that when she had her children, because she didn't get the opportunity to go and have a free education that we take so for granted in this country and in lots of the developing and developed countries around the world, she was adamant that her children were not going to be stereotypes. They were not going to be statistics, particularly coming from a single parent environment. Unfortunately, there was that stereotype in our household, but she was determined that was not going to define who we were. So she was adamant that we were going to be educated. And I remember my mum had these mantras that many of you will probably have heard in your household. This is my house, these are my rules. It's one of those things that gets repeated. It's not a black thing, it's not a white thing, it's just a parent thing, because I now hear lots of people saying the same thing, but she had this ability to do that. And also, she could throw a slipper and it could go around corners and still catch them. She had skills. She should have been in the Olympics. But the big thing for my mum was around education, and more education. And the reason for that, she felt that that was the way that we were going to climb the social mobility ladder. And it's a very strong thing, I think, within our culture and community. I'm adverse to say that because I have a big issue with, I'll be very honest, with Black History Month. Should we do it in February? Should we do it in October? Should we do it for every single month? Anyway, that's another debate, and I've only got 10 minutes, so I won't go into that one. But I have this big thing around when we were going through school, what my mum was really focused that we do is walk out with a certificate. She wanted us to walk out with a piece of paper. And I remember going through one of the mantras that she used to say in addition to education was, don't come home with any B's. I want you to go and get all A's. And I remember coming home with a couple of B's and being really happy that I tried really hard. My mum wasn't happy that I got the B's. And she used to say, Tim, when you go to school, you must work twice as hard as your white counterparts. It's really difficult. Don't get scared, white people. It's not going to talk, I promise. But the reason why she said that, no, we've got to embrace this is Black History Month. We're all part of the same kind of family, the big family. The reason why she said that was because she felt that that was the way that we had to be successful. That was our driving force, because she grew up in a time when there were signs and laws which said no dogs, no Irish, no blacks. Because she believed that was really important to her. Well, I remember going to school in Forest Gate in East London. Every kid in my school was black. So it was like, who am I supposed to compete with? Where these people? Right? So actually the benchmark was kind of slightly different. But in addition to that, we've really got to be careful with our language. We have to be incredibly careful with our language, because inadvertently, what my mum was saying to me was that my skin colour made me a second-class citizen. She wasn't doing it on purpose, she was trying to be motivational, and I understand that in terms of the drive that she was trying to push forward. But in a way, she was trying to say that just because of something I had no control over, I had to work twice as hard as other people. And actually, all I had to do was work as hard as I possibly could. The benchmarks that we set are very, very important for ourselves, not the language that other people find important. Because believe me, our young people growing up, they talk a completely different language. Their context is completely different from the one that we grew up in. And we have to be incredibly careful when we talk about what Black history is, what it actually means for them, and we should be finding those inspirational stories to get them to do what I think my mum was trying to say, which was that I had an excuse to be brilliant because of the history and legacy that came before me that facilitates the conversation that we're having in this building today. That's where I think we should have a focus around what we talk around Black history. All too often, the conversation is retrospective. And that's fine, we have to acknowledge what's come and what's gone before. But for lots of us, we have to be looking forward because that's the reality that we face ourselves. Now, I remember leaving from school, getting all my degrees and doing all the things at school. Mum faxed my degree certificates to everybody in Jamaica. Writing things in abundance on that side of the school, right? Because I was the first Campbell to go to university. Fantastic. I didn't know what to do with that piece of paper. And I think what I learned by going on the show with The Apprentice, which I completely do not want anybody to go near a television camera at all. One, because I could never get drunk and sleep on the train and dribble again. Taking pictures of it, the devilish thing. But more importantly, I think we need to educate people about how you can control your path to wealth. Because I think lots of people rightly want to have a better life. There's no problem there, I've got no problem at all. But we don't facilitate a conversation about how to get there. And all too often, we don't have a sensible conversation about business. Every single person in this room has encompassed or interacted with at least 20 businesses in this very day. And very few of us would have control over any of that generation of wealth in that process. Because if you bought a train ticket, if you're wearing a lovely pair of shoes, if you're wearing a jacket, if you've got a drink, if you're reading a newspaper, every single thing you do on a daily basis involves business. So when I came out of The Apprentice, I thought, hold on a second. I've just launched this health and beauty product, which is a very interesting conversation, believe me, to go into the worlds of Harrods and rub your hand and cream on the back of hand and say, oh, isn't that lovely? And talk about vitamin C, E and D. It was a very crazy experience for a man who plays football and gets rid by his friend. But anyway, doing that, it showed me that in order to really take control, we have to understand how business works. And when I left from the show, what I wanted to do was really destroy the myth about success being able to generate it in 12 weeks, and teach people how they could create their own businesses for themselves. Because I think control is really important to all of us. It's at the centre of all of the things that we do. The role models that I took away, control is really important. My mum, I said, was an entrepreneur. She used to make clothes for people. She used to sit at an old Singer sewing machine till 2 or 3 in the morning after doing a day's work cleaning for people, and then sell the clothes and stuff to other people. She could make your outfit probably without a pattern, just a one true scissor that none of us were ever allowed to touch. And she sold to friends. She also used to make cakes. Beautiful cakes where she, you know when you soak fruit in rum for about 20 million years, and then you put it down, and then put it in a cake, the most moist, beautiful cakes you could ever eat. You could never drive after eating one of the cakes. My mum should have had a business called Curtains and Cakes. She should have floated it, I'm not joking, why are you laughing? I'm being serious. She should have floated that on the AIM market and she should have made millions from it. Don't laugh people, because this is really important. The things that we have and we take for granted that we do just by the fact that you can wrap your hair so beautifully like that, charge someone for the privilege to look like you. We all have talents and skills that I wanted to be able to show people you could convert that into something that's in control. So when I left The Apprentice, what I did, I set up an organisation called Bright Ideas Trust, and we started investing in start-up businesses. Today we're just shy of our 100th business. As I said, we raised a couple of £1 million, and I think that's why they took me down to the Royal Palace and gave me a lovely MD, which also got it right for peace for my mum on the weekend. Fantastic. But thank you, but that is not important. I did say to people, I say it because we have to teach people about how to play the game. When I talk about people running and jumping, I think the reason why they're successful and the reason why that path is so clear is because the rules of the game are very clear. It's very clear, if I kick the ball, and I can't play football to save my life, into a goal, 2 pillars, held up by a net, if I do that and I'm successful at that, someone will pay me a lot of money. That's a clear path to success. If I can throw a round circular object into the air and fall through some more netting off a backboard, and I can do that without being challenged, I'm also going to make a lot of money. But no one tells you about how you're going to control money and wealth when we're at school. They don't educate you about how that's done. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to take the learning that I learned from my journey in The Apprentice and working with Lord Sugar, who was a phenomenal mentor, an absolute phenomenal mentor, and then teach other people how to do exactly the same. Because I think the beauty that we have is that we're naturally entrepreneurial. From the likes of Mary Seeker right down to my mum who was making her curtains and cake, we are naturally entrepreneurial because sometimes when the bank don't give you money, you've got to do a partner system, you've created your own bank. You've created your own bank. We forget these things because we get our little house and we get our little BMW and our 2.4 kids and then we want to be by ourselves. So just to follow the analogy, slightly on from Manfred, I think there is a huge amount of collaboration that happens within our community. I think what doesn't happen, we don't communicate it enough and we don't share the messages. So what I wanted to lay down in the Bright Ideas Trust and the work I've come on to do subsequently is how we teach people to do what is possible. The organisation I've just recently started is a recruitment business because I think there are only a few people who actually can be successful about running businesses in the normal way. Most people will be kitchen table entrepreneurs and they'll make cakes and wrap people's hair like my mum did. And that's fantastic, just to make a little bit of pin money. My mum called it making ends meet. That's what she called being an entrepreneur, making ends meet. I think now, my big drive, and what I'm going to do over the next couple of years, I'm going to grow a big recruitment business which is going to take young people, I don't care if you're black, white, blue or yellow, take young people and place you into organisations and do good work by teaching people how to get jobs. Because skills is a massive issue for us. Finish on the last thing because my 2-minute warning has been thrown down from comfort up in the rafters there. I think we have to walk away from any interaction with somebody thinking, what have I given and what have I taken? And hopefully, I've given something, and I'm hopefully going to interact with you so I can take something back because I've taken some fantastic pearls of wisdom from our speakers. One of the greatest things that has been resolute in our community is the ability to tell stories. What we have to make sure, and what we have complete control over as a brand, and I think all of us, whether it's Black History Month, the homogenous grouping of black, or do you just as an individual have the ability to redefine what your brand stands for? I did an awful lot for brands. I remember begging my mum for a Nike Pegasus basketball pair of trainers when I was young. And because we didn't have enough money, my mum went out and got a Nick pair of trainers with Emis in them. It's good to go and get and be part of that brand. And when you have a good brand, people will follow you. I think being black makes me a great brand. But we have to redefine what that means. It's not about diversity, it's about who I am. Thank you.